Get that camera the f away from me.
I was so appalled by the way I looked.
The people that try to make you scared, you know, and fight back.
It's been a dream to join the MCU. The movie is called The Fantastic Four. I'll confess, I did all my stretching for...
Just like we see with every single Marvel movie released, the big lead up, the excitement, the hype that the mainstream media desperately tries to generate. And it always ends up happening this way.
And now you got Disney CEO Bob Iger only making matters worse.
Marvel just gambled everything on Pedro Pascal's Fantastic Four and lost in spectacular fashion. What was supposed to be Marvel's triumphant return, the film that would reignite the spark after years of shaky releases, has instead turned into one of the biggest embarrassments the studio has ever faced. The numbers are brutal, the headlines are worse, and the finger-pointing, it's already started, landing squarely on Pedro Pascal, the man Disney believed could carry an entire franchise on his shoulders. But this story isn't just about one box office flop. It's about the dangerous cracks spreading through the very foundation of Marvel's empire. For years, Marvel sold us the dream of unstoppable blockbusters, billion-dollar openings, and heroes who could do no wrong.
Disney and Marvel Studios, they went into panic mode, they went into damage control mode, over, of course, all the Hollywood trades talking about this.
Yet with Fantastic Four, First Steps, all of that came crashing down. The film flatlined at the box office within weeks, sending shockwaves through Hollywood and leaving insiders whispering about something Marvel has desperately tried to hide. Their golden age might be over. And here's the part that should really scare Disney executives. This isn't just a failed reboot. It's a warning sign. Because if Pedro Pascal's Fantastic Four can't win over fans, what hope does Marvel have left for the Avengers, for the X-Men, or even for the future of the MCU itself?
Now, given that the Fantastic Four First Steps box office situation is throwing both Disney and Marvel Studios into a state of panic for obvious reasons, we know that those out there like Pedro Pascal, who continues to make things political during the press tour of this film, it's not helping at all in any case. And one thing is for certain right now is that the numbers that they're pulling in right now for the box office metrics, these aren't the numbers that they were hoping for, especially before Spider-Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday in, of course, 2026.
Every studio in town is watching, every rival is circling, and every fan is asking the same burning question. Has Marvel finally run out of magic? The numbers tell the story Marvel doesn't want you to hear. Fantastic for Marwan. First Steps opened big with a $116 million domestic debut. But within just 2 weeks, the movie had already lost its footing. A devastating 67% drop in its second weekend, followed by another 59% plunge in its third, erased any hope of recovery. By the time the third week tally came in at just $15 million, analysts knew the truth. This wasn't a stumble, it was a collapse. Globally, the film has scraped together around $434 million, which might sound impressive until you realize Marvel banked on at least $500 million just to break even.
Brand Marvel used to sell tickets in and of itself. It almost didn't matter what the movie was. People were interested because they were so bought into the MCU. And in particular, late into Phase 3, it was just people trusted.
Remember, these films don't just cost hundreds of millions to make. They burn through marketing budgets the size of small nations. And when the dust settles, Fantastic Four won't just miss the billion-dollar mark Marvel once treated as a given. It may not even cross $500 million worldwide. That's a nightmare scenario for Disney, because when you compare this flop to Marvel's past hits, the difference is staggering. Once upon a time, Marvel movies had legs. They stuck around, pulling audiences back for weeks. But Fantastic Four flatlined almost immediately. Every day looked the same, every audience shrank, and the so-called momentum was gone. Instead of being Marvel's big revival, this reboot has become the perfect case study in what happens when hype crashes headfirst into reality. And that's where the spotlight shifts, not just onto Marvel, but onto the star they thought could save them. Pedro Pascal was supposed to be the ace up Marvel's sleeve. Fresh off The Mandalorian and The Last of Us, he was Hollywood's most bankable name, the internet's favorite daddy, and the face Marvel bet the future of the Fantastic Four on. Casting him as Reed Richards was sold as a masterstroke, a way to inject star power and credibility into a shaky franchise. But now, that choice is backfiring in ways Disney never saw coming. Fans have been brutal. From the moment Pascal appeared on screen, critics argued he was miscast, too much of a celebrity face and not enough of a believable genius superhero. Memes spread online mocking his performance, with some comparing him unfavorably to past versions of Reed Richards. Instead of applause, Marvel got backlash. And suddenly, the narrative shifted from Pedro Pascal saves the MCU to Pedro Pascal sinks the ship. The whispers are getting louder, too. Industry insiders claim Marvel leaned too heavily on Pascal's star power, ignoring that the script and direction couldn't hold up. Others argue he was set up to fail, becoming the face of a doomed project that no actor could have salvaged. Either way, Pascal now finds himself in the crosshairs, not just of disappointed fans, but of critics who say this flop proves Marvel's strategy of star-studded casting has finally burned out. And here's the dangerous part. Marvel tied Pascal directly to the future of the Avengers. If audiences have already lost faith in him, what does that mean for the movies still to come? Marvel tried to spin Fantastic Four's collapse as bad luck. They pointed fingers at fierce competition and claimed the timing just wasn't right. But when you actually look at the numbers, that excuse falls apart instantly. The truth? Fantastic Four wasn't crushed by heavyweights, it was embarrassed by films that shouldn't have even been in the same league. Take Weapons, a mid-budget horror release from Warner Brothers. Horror films don't usually overlap with superhero audiences, yet Weapons stunned Hollywood with a $43 million opening weekend. Then there was Freak Your Friday, a teen-friendly comedy that still managed to pull nearly $30 million. These weren't direct competitors. These were niche films finding their crowd. And while they carved out success, Fantastic Four, Marvel's crown jewel, was bleeding money in plain sight. But the real dagger came from DC. James Gunn's Superman didn't just outperform Pascal's Fantastic Four, it soared past it, racking up around $60 million more at the same stage. And unlike Marvel's flatlining numbers, Superman held steady week after week, showing the kind of legs Marvel used to be famous for. The message was loud and clear. Audiences are willing to show up for superheroes, just not the ones Marvel is selling anymore. That comparison is devastating for Disney, because it proves this flop isn't about audience fatigue, it's about Marvel losing the trust of the fans. And that distrust is now creeping into something even bigger: Avengers: Doomsday. Here's where the flop turns into a full-blown crisis. Avengers: Doomsday was designed as the MCU's grand reset, the movie that would pull together characters from Fantastic Four, Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts into one epic crossover. It was supposed to be Marvel's guaranteed billion-dollar comeback. But now, every single one of those lead-in movies has flopped. Think about it. Captain America: Brave New World underperformed. Thunderbolts failed to spark excitement. And now, Fantastic Four, the film that should have launched Marvel's first family into the spotlight, has flatlined. That means the stars of Avengers: Doomsday are all coming off box office disasters. Imagine trying to sell a multi-billion-dollar event film with characters the audience has already rejected. It's a recipe for disaster, and Disney knows it. Whispers are already swirling in Hollywood that Avengers: Doomsday could face another delay. Some insiders claim Disney executives are terrified of releasing a film that ties its entire brand to 3 separate flops. Others suggest rewrites are already on the table, with talk of minimizing Pascal's role to protect the Avengers brand. Because if this gamble goes wrong, Marvel won't just lose money, it could lose its last shred of credibility. And here's the chilling part. If Avengers: Doomsday tanks, Spider-Man may actually end up being bigger than the Avengers. That's right, the character Marvel once shared with Sony might now be the studio's only lifeline. If there's one name still keeping Marvel alive, it's Spider-Man. While almost every recent Marvel release has stumbled, Spider-Man: No Way Home proved there's still gold left in the superhero genre. Why? Because it tapped into nostalgia. Bringing back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield wasn't just a gimmick, it was a reminder of when audiences trusted Marvel's stories. That one move turned a struggling franchise into a multi-billion-dollar event. And here's the kicker: Spider-Man doesn't even belong fully to Marvel. He's still tied up in Sony's control, meaning Disney's biggest wins aren't entirely theirs to claim. Yet Spider-Man is now more trusted than the Avengers themselves. Insiders predict that if Marvel releases Avengers: Doomsday as planned, Spider-Man could actually outperform it at the box office. A complete reversal of what was once unthinkable. But can Marvel really rely on Spider-Man forever? Nostalgia only works so many times before the magic wears off. And if the studio can't create fresh characters fans care about, even Spider-Man won't be enough to hold the empire together. That's the terrifying reality Marvel is facing. their future may depend on a hero they don't even fully own. Behind closed doors, Disney is scrambling. Sources claim executives are debating drastic changes, slashing production budgets by half, casting unknown actors instead of expensive A-listers, and cutting back on massive CGI-heavy spectacles. It's a survival strategy, born out of fear that audiences no longer see Marvel as the unstoppable force it once was. There are even whispers of crossovers once thought impossible. Rumors swirl about Marvel considering a Marvel versus DC collaboration somewhere down the line, a Hail Mary attempt to recapture the hype. Whether that's realistic or just wishful thinking, the fact that it's being talked about at all shows just how desperate things have become. And then there's the star factor. Marvel's reliance on celebrity casting, like Pedro Pascal, backfired spectacularly. If audiences see famous names as distractions instead of draws, Disney may pivot to fresh faces, hoping to rebuild the MCU the way it started, with relative unknowns who became household names. But here's the problem. Back then, Marvel had goodwill. Today, they're fighting against fatigue, skepticism, and a wave of bad press. In short, Marvel is cornered, and when a giant is cornered, every move it makes looks more like panic than strategy. So, where does this leave Marvel, with one of their most iconic teams, the Fantastic Four, flopping harder than anyone imagined, and with Pedro Pascal's casting going from genius move to critical misfire, the future of the MCU has never looked shakier. The Avengers are built on the wreckage of failed films, Spider-Man is holding the franchise together on borrowed time, and Disney is running out of billion-dollar tricks. The bigger question isn't just whether Marvel can bounce back, it's whether the superhero era itself is coming to an end. For over a decade, Marvel defined the box office, shaping pop culture like no studio before it. But every empire eventually crumbles. And after Fantastic Four's spectacular collapse, fans are asking a question no one thought possible just a few years ago. Is this the moment we finally witness the fall of the MCU?